What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping note, if you are watching us on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever podcast platform you utilize, please hit that follow and subscribe button. Help us build up our numbers so we can continue to bring you interviews and conversations like the one I'm about to have right now with Miss Chloe Trujillo, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Trujillo. Yeah.
Trujillo.
Yeah.
All right. I've always, that's. I wish I would have asked before we went on there because I always butcher people's names.
I'm French, and when I moved to the U.S., I thought, if I ever get married one day, people are gonna have an easier time pronouncing my last name, but so you're not the only one, just to say.
Okay. And well, usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a quick background about them and mention you're from France, but originally, do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I was born in Paris, France, and my parents were fashion designers, and my mom was always painting too on weekends when she had time, and they had long hours, during fashion weeks, and so my second set of parents, I want to say, are my grandparents, and my grandfather was an opera singer, professional opera singer. So I grew up around a lot of art, and my parents dressed also a lot of like French pop artists, who became friends, etc. So I grew up a lot around all this artistic kind of creative family, and I knew I was an artist. I knew I was always drawing, doodling everywhere. Even my bedroom wall, I started painting a big dragon and things like that. But I was also very good at math. When math became super abstract, like later, high school and all this, so much that my dad confused me because I knew deep inside I wanted to be an artist. But because he saw how good I was in math, so he kind of, even though he was an artist himself, thinking about my future, he didn't want me to struggle. So he kind of like, you should pursue science. And so I graduated high school in math and physics. And then I went to a university in Paris, which was all scientific. Of course, on the side, I was always painting, writing music, all that stuff. But, it was an inner struggle. So, yeah. but I did graduate from the university in mathematics and physics and mechanics and different, the scientific field. And then after that, I confronted my dad. I say, well, now I have all my diplomas. So if I want a job, I can get it. But please let me, I was over 18 then, of course. So I didn't need his blessing. I could do whatever I want, but in a way I wanted his blessings, just so, and then he gave me his blessings, and then I went on to study art too. Even though I was already drawing and painting, but I went to study art history and different techniques. And parallel to that, I was also in different bands as a singer, like metal bands, but mostly for fun. I was writing music too, but I was so shy and reserved that I was not ready to share it with the world. So I kept it all to myself. And then the frustration grew so much after keeping it to myself so much. So I'm like, okay, now I gotta, kind of release what I have or perform and all that stuff. But it's a long, I made a very short, concise summary of it was a long process, but yeah.
No, I mean, I liked hearing that too, because I have two daughters and they're both, now they're 22 and youngest is about to turn 19. And just the things that as a father that I want for them to not struggle and have to, to be
Yeah,
better, but they have a love, as well for the arts and music. And so just, to be there to give that blessing, I kind of need, I feel like I needed to hear that story from you, that
yeah.
affirmation right now. So I'm glad,
See? It's good.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and I totally understand. Like, I don't blame my father at all, for wanting what's best for me. But it's good to pursue your passions, and even if you don't, make money right away of it, you can always get jobs. And but pursuing your passion, I mean, we have one life to live, so might as well make it as as enjoyable as possible.
exactly. And,
Yeah.
just, I think the comfort was though that, you had gotten your education, so you could have
Yeah.
gotten, so
Yeah.
that probably, helped dad like feel a little bit at ease. Like you can go out
Totally.
and
Yeah.
be able to be on your own, but go ahead and do, pursue your passion and what you enjoy. You'd
Yeah.
mentioned music too and playing in bands. And I wanted to ask, like, what was the music scene like there growing up in France? And like what kind of originally you said your grandfather was an opera singer, but what
Yeah.
kind of else attracted you to music? Um, that
Well, there was always music in in my family. Uh, Also, my parents listened to a lot of different style of music, mostly rock. I discovered Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Jimi Hendrix, and all that through my father.
Nice.
Um, uh, you know, and when my parents did their runway show, my parents had work all over the world, so they were coming to LA a lot because they had a lot of customers there. And I mean by that, I mean like not retail, but like wholesale. So they would sell to shops, and so whenever back in the day before the internet and everything, you would have like release like the albums of like mostly American bands and all that would be released in the US first before it would make it all the way to Europe. So he would get music from LA right when it would come out and bring it for his fashion show, so that the European people that would come to the show would not know the music, but it'd be
Oh,
cool
nice.
music. And that's how I discovered Danzig too. He had Danzig
Awesome.
things like that. But so I grew up around a lot of music, but especially like opera, like I said, and then rock, heavy metal. I want to say more metal, hard rock kind of thing. And but then then in my teenage years, I was hanging out. There were a group of us hanging out in front of record stores, and especially the Virgin Mega store that used to be on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And we would find each other there in front of the store every weekend and drink beer on the bench outside, because you can do that in France. Uh, 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 and listen to music and get the latest Slayer and all this, and we build together. And there'll be like some punk rockers in the mix. There'll be even like a few homeless people in the mix. We're just like hanging out, and I started going to see a lot of shows. I was really into like extreme, mostly like death metal and grindcore and this type of thing. So going to see shows, and I started making friends with the people that worked at the shows and worked at the venue. So I got invited to see even more shows. So it's like it was almost, and there was a lot of shows going through Paris. So yeah, so like I got, even my kids now, they're looking at, because I have a lot of my tickets like still, even if there were invitations or whatever, I kept a lot of them. And then when my kids see all the bands I saw, she's like, oh damn, you got to see this, oh I wish I would see, all through the 90s. Yeah, like for example, my daughter loves the band Death, and now they have like a new death with without Chuck, but because Chuck passed away, I think 2000, I forgot which year, but I got to see them original, you know, and she's like, oh man, and I wish I had seen this band and this band and this band, you know. They get to see a lot of bands already, and they're still seeing bands, but yeah. So it was good time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've been blessed with you know, I used to do concert promotions here. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I used to do concert promotions here. So through the years, you know, you network and you make friends, like you said, and get invited to more shows, and made a lot of, you know, friends in the industry as time went on, doing stuff like this podcast and things like that. And I got to take my daughter to see Jane's Addiction and Smashing Pumpkins when they just came through town on tour, and it was like really cool because that's, you know, stuff I grew up listening to, and they're just like, oh wow, just getting hip to it, and to share that experience, you know, with them is awesome.
Yeah.
And you said you actually started performing in a band too. Like when did?
Yeah, I had I started getting together with friends, and I was the vocalist, and yeah, we started. Actually, I did a couple of different bands, high school, through high school, and then one a little bit later on when I was in university, and just small clubs, you know, did some radio shows and things like that. You know, back in the day.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, so, you know, you've always kind of pursued the arts. That's been inside you, you know, a part of your soul. That's some of your work. I take it behind you.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah,
and,
I'm in my studio right now.
Yeah. And like what ended up bringing you to then, oops, sorry about that. What ended up bringing you to the States then?
An audition, actually. You know, it's to make a long story short, I was assaulted, but I fought back. You know, by like there was in the mid-90s, there was a serial killer rapist guy, and I actually escaped. I fought for 20 minutes with that guy. You know, I did martial arts, so I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but I felt the adrenaline, and I was like, I don't know. There's this inner power you get, and so after that event, because it was 20 minutes of fight, which seemed like 2 hours, where I thought I was going to lose my life almost. I went through a healing process, and during that time, like not luckily, I was not badly hurt, and I didn't get raped. You know, I had like the guy ripped my pants off and you know, headbutted me, banged my head against the staircase, tried to knock me out. I just, you know, there's like this force in me that just, you know, fought back, and I think he was surprised that I was actually fighting back. Probably. And so this whole healing process that took place, I had to also look at my life and where I was at that moment, and kind of reassess everything that was going on in my life. And also I was, so a friend of mine told me about this audition for New York. And if I had not been, who knows, maybe I would have, but I think because I had survived this attack and felt like I had nothing else to lose because I was like still healing, I went to the audition and I made it. And so, yeah, I was in a state of mind. I had nothing to lose anyway. Like, let's do it. And so when I made it, that's when I moved to New York first.
So this happened back in France?
This happened in Paris, yes.
Okay.
So then I moved to New York after that audition, and you know, and I had my first work permit and things like that. And after 2 years in New York, my sister had already moved to Los Angeles because we knew Los Angeles because we like I said, my parents were working there a lot. So if we were out of school during the time that they had to go, they would take us along. So we knew LA, and my sister always knew she wanted to live here. I wasn't like that at all. It just like kind of life took me here. But my sister was in LA. I had a lot of dear friends too in LA, and so I'm like, oh, I'll just go visit. And then here we are. I'm still here many years later. I just
Yeah.
happened to stay. I knew my husband before. We were friends for many years because I was very close to Suicidal Tendencies. I was very good friends with them when I was like a teenager, and then yeah, and then he's so that's how I stayed. Is I was going to go back to Paris. I didn't know where I was when I first moved to LA. I was starting from scratch again. And then Robert called me and wanted to meet. And I said, okay, I'll meet. And then he asked me on a date. And I was in shock even because we were friends for so many years. I didn't expect it. And then things just happened naturally. And then, next
Those
thing
are
you
usually the best.
married. Next thing you know, we have 2 kids, and next thing you know, we're still here.
That's awesome. Those are usually the best ones that last. Start as friends, and
Yeah,
you know.
it definitely helps.
But I wanted to backtrack just really quick because you know it reassured me. Another reason why I'm glad my youngest daughter takes jujitsu classes,
Yeah.
for one. But and I'm sorry that you went through that.
Yeah, it's also, it gives you a certain confidence and strength when you face, especially when you're faced with a male that's like taller than you, stronger than you. But I think the surprise effects and then the confidence that I think doing martial arts helps with also knowing your inner power in a way.
Yeah.
And then being confident that you can defend yourself.
Yeah, so I'm grateful she's doing that. I've seen her confidence rise up
Yeah.
and all that. But there I'd read that when you first came to the States, there was a time that you actually like were connected with Frank Zappa.
Yeah, because one of the years, I think it was in 80, we were kids, my sister and I have 2 sisters, but my youngest was too small. So I must have been like 14, like in the anyway, it was the late 80s, 13, 4, anyways, around that time. Um, my parents had to work in LA, and they had my baby sister with them. But me and my other sister, they sent us to a camp in Fresno. And we never experienced an American camp. We kind of spoke English from learning English at school, but it was like we're surrounded by American kids and all this stuff. So what I ended up doing, because I was all into metal and music, I just took that activity that was called Wet Lake, and it's just hanging by a lake and doing whatever you want. You can just hang by the lake, you can grab a canoe and just paddle around or whatever. And all I did every day was just laying on the towel and listen to music. And there was a guy my age, like next to me, doing the same thing every day. And he finally came over, and then we started listening to music together. And that was Ahmet Zappa. And we became super close friends. And then he invited us to come to his house after the camp. And so that's when both our families met, and both our families connected so much that they came to stay with us in Paris. My parents had a house in the country of France too, in the middle of nowhere. They came to spend time with us there. And then we went to visit them in LA, and it started this really strong friendship. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
then kind of going back, so you started dating Robert when he was still with Suicidal Tendencies. So you've been together.
No, Actually, no, I knew him then, and we were friends. And then he went on to work with Ozzy, and I didn't see him for like 7 years because I saw him once play at Donington Festival, I think. Um, but he rarely played in Paris. So it's not until I moved to LA that Robert actually asked me on a date, and he was still with Ozzy.
Oh, okay. But you guys were together as Metallica came along for him
Yeah,
and everything like
yeah,
that.
I saw the whole audition process. I not see by eyes, but I was there when he was prepping for the audition. Yeah, I experienced the whole thing.
So what an amazing transition that's been for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's I got pregnant and he got the Metallica thing that same year. So it was like a big change for him, especially like, okay, new job and then a baby. Okay.
Yeah, two amazing blessings in
Yeah.
one year. That's awesome. And then so I mean I want to be respectful of your time and stuff. Well, I want to talk about your current project.
Yeah.
How did this come together with what is it? Rav Medic is his
Yes. So during COVID, I was working on my own music too, and I've released a bunch of songs too on my own. But I was always needing the help of an engineer to put it together because I had this I was reluctant to do the computer thing, like the software, So
Oh
I
yeah.
always use somebody else to put my ideas together for me. Like I would play, like I would grab my guitar and play an idea or sing vocal melodies and use my keyboard or whatever. And then when COVID hit, I wanted to really release those songs I had written, but the guy with the studio shut down because everything was on lockdown. So it was also a blessing in disguise because it kind of forced me to learn how to use a DAW software, and so I was able to release all these songs in the early part of COVID. Like I taught myself, and even if it's not perfect, it's like a learning experience, a learning
Yeah.
curve. I'm releasing the songs, and some of them I listen back now. I'm like, oh, now I know how to do this better and this better. But anyway, it's part of the growing. It's like, okay. And as I was releasing song, I got contacted. So I did a few virtual shows for festivals and stuff, and one of those was for a charity and called Global Green. And so I did this, and mostly when you perform, you get like, also because it's all virtual, so it's all online, you get like a free invite to the festival or the performances, and you can watch from home too. So I watched at Global Green Festival, and there was only another metal band that was performing there, and that was with Rav Medic. So I'm like, oh, cool. There was another, because most of them were all pop artists. I think they were rap artists, but anyway. And a couple of days after that, Rav Medic actually contacted me through Instagram, and he asked if I or an email. I forgot how he contacted me, but anyway, he reached out and asked if I wanted to collaborate on one song. And so I said, yeah, sure. And that's how it started. He emailed me some guitar riffs. I emailed him back vocal melodies, and then he added on and I added on, and then we created a whole song without ever meeting in person. And once we released that song, it got such a great response that actually, yeah, the label contacted us, and we signed for a label, and now we're working on EP number 2.
Yeah.
So that's how it worked, and it was all during those weird times where we couldn't meet in person, but we made things happen.
There, and I was able to experience quite a few blessings with the whole COVID thing because, I'm which, I'm inspired by your song Stone Cold Sober, but for another reason. And I want to ask you about the video. and what the message is with that song. But I'm in recovery, you know. So I just celebrate 13 years of sobriety beginning of the year. And I wasn't able to hit meetings, but I was able to do Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, everything went to virtual.
Yeah.
And it just opened my world up to so many new friends and connections of people across the states, you know, in that world. And it helped this podcast grow and help me learn. I had to learn the software, kind of like you. I'm reluctant to try new things. And I had to learn the software now to do this and build this thing up. And I'm still stepping out of my comfort zone, trying to learn how to do the video editing and stuff like that. But back to your project. So you guys get the EP that's out, Heavy Peace.
Yeah.
What well, first I always like to know the meanings of names, or what inspired you to come up with, you know, what's the meaning to you when you guys called it Heavy Peace?
Because it kind of reflects, I feel like, the overall vibe of the EP, because it's heavy. There's you know, there's like the heaviness of the music, but some of the subjects are more heavy. And peace is like, we want to make peace with those delicate subjects, or you know, the most heavier, like work through. And to me, music has always been like that. It's like something that makes you, like, either it can comfort you, or it changes your inner state in a way that it makes you stronger or more powerful. Like you feel like you can pull through a challenge sometimes when you listen to music that you love, and it's just like, I can do it, like you know.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea. And even behind every song, there's a message, there's a positive message, and it's like the heavy music, but you know, it's not like kill yourself and die kind of message, but it's the opposite, you know.
And that's why, you know, the name Stone Cold Sober of your latest video stuck out to me, because of there's my interpretation of what those words mean. But what was the meaning behind that song for you?
And I actually love to leave. It's like my artwork too. Like people ask me, like, what does it mean? And I think individually we each have our own meaning we can apply. So I love that. And I know that some of the meaning is for me, it was a sort of breaking free from those like things that kind of, you know, there's moments where you I don't know, I'm thinking of some of the lyrics. It's hard now because we're working on EP number 2. So I have all these other songs in my head. But I know it was, you know, those things you have inside you, and sometimes you want to scream, or you just want to, you know, and it's almost like something's holding you back, but it's like that inner struggle. But at the same time, I don't want to give it a specific, like, okay, there's certain things that because according to my experience and my life and you know, like the different emotions, you know, that we all have, and certain things, like I could see it one way, but I want to give everybody the freedom to just perceive
however
it.
they feel it. And
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah. Like I said, same thing with my art. You know, people ask me, like, what do you mean? Why is this and that? And I'm like, you just got to perceive it, like, you know, receive it and use it, and hopefully it'll make you, you know, feel better or uplift you or something that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I kind of got, when you were kind of describing that to me too, is like your story going back to how you always had the music inside, but you were afraid to step out and perform as a youth. It almost sounds like, or afraid to pursue your love for art because you wanted to make your father happy with school and everything. So it sounds like you're still almost like processing
still,
as an adult, you know, it's like a therapy for you.
And I think we always work on ourselves. We always have to, because it's so easy to let yourself go and down that spiral of I don't know. I mean, you know, like people from the outside, they can look at certain things and say, oh, this is easy, but it's never easy. You always have to work and make it like, I don't think it ever ends, because we're all constantly evolving. We're humans, so it's
I'm approaching 50, and I realize the more I've learned, the less I know. I'm still learning something new every day, and that's just part of the journey and embracing that.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask too, so the video for that, you had some professional ice skaters, and they were telling a story, but I guess, is that the same thing with your art? You're saying like everybody can kind of read it as...
Yeah, because it could be like, oh, you're dancing, but you're dancing in that cold, but it's a free feeling, but then it's like there's the environment, like it's so I like to, I usually don't like to give too much information, and let I think it's more interesting when people talk about it, and actually it's be great that everybody kind of talks about it in the way that it touched them, or how they perceive something, because that tells a lot about a person, how what this means to you versus somebody see it. And it's interesting to see the different opinions and the different the different perceptions of something. Like I'm having an art show this weekend, and I always love to see and hear how people react to my work, or what they think something is, or what it means to them.
So it makes us go back to our like childhood minds of imagination. We don't use that enough anymore. I think as adults we get so like programmed to think certain things, but it's better when we go back to looking at the world through the eyes of childhood, of children. Like when we look at clouds and I'd say, I see a dog, and stuff like that, instead of,
definitely.
It's just, it's definitely freeing. So I was looking at some of your other videos online, and I saw the Spellbook Rain video. And I really like that. Now, was this some of your solo stuff, or was this still with Rav?
No, that's my solo stuff.
I like that one. It was
all made here. Everything's made here, right there.
It reminded me of kind of what you were saying with your dad's fashion shows, when he would, bring in heavy music. I felt like I was watching one of those, because you were doing the change of the
I know
outfits and everything. But then I liked the whole that location where you filmed that at. Where was that?
That's by the Salton Sea in the desert here in California. So it's about 3.5 hour drive, even though it took me 5 hours to get there because traffic. But
yeah, that was
it was a full day. That video shoot, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. nonstop, no breaks. The only breaks is changing clothes.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that video, and you just reminded me of your traffic that you're getting ready to deal with. So I want to get ready.
Right. I didn't even look. I don't like to look at the time when I'm talking to somebody.
So I want to get ready and wrap up to give you the time for your drive. But if you wouldn't mind, if I just ask you a couple questions that I normally ask my guests before you get off.
Okay.
Three people who've inspired you, or you can credit for making you the person you are today.
Well, I want to say those three people. It's going to be pretty easy, because who I am today, I think my 2 children and my husband, because they don't even know it, but they inspire me every day. I have 2 very talented kids that create music and art, and I'm constantly inspired, and they make me, they kind of force me to be a better person and a better artist, and they push me without pushing me, just seeing them and being inspired by their energy, and then my husband, because we've been through so many things together, and to see his how he is, it's really inspired me to also think, like, I don't know, there's a certain certainty that he has about who he is and what he does and all this, and it's very inspiring. He's very grounded, because I tend to be very like la, 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 la. And it's a great balance. So it's like very inspiring. So this is my answer.
Oh, that's beautiful. Would you say you guys are still like best friends today too?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And then favorite toy as a child?
Oh, so when I was, well, it's weird, but I had this stuffed animal. But it's when I was 2, I got really, really sick, and I had to spend time in the hospital, and they didn't even know if I was going to make it, and I made it. And then my dad took me to the toy store and said, you can get anything you want, anything. Like, they get stuffed animal like this and this. I chose this little pony animal, and that was, and then later on, I actually, I don't know, I was like, I always felt super independent. Like, even my parents tell me as a child, I was like, just doing things on my own. And so that little pony thing that was like this big, that I could get anything I want, I just chose this little thing. Even my parents were like, really? Is that all you want? We tell you can get anything, because they were so happy I didn't die or, made it through. I'm like, no, that's all I want. So I used that thing. If I had to cross the street and they want to hold my hand, no, you hold the hand of the thing. I can do it on my own. But if you want to hold the pony's hand, it's like that. So I don't know if I have my favorite toy, but that's one that
sticks in.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to let you go because you got to go.
Yeah, I gotta
deal with
run.
that traffic. But I want to thank you for your time, and for anybody that was watching that's new to hearing about your projects and your music and your art. Where would you send them to check it out?
So you can go on my website, chloetrujillo.com. CHLOETRUJILLO.com. I also very active on Instagram, so Chloe Trujillo, same thing. I have a YouTube channel, Chloe Trujillo, and I keep things up to date. I try to be as I like on Instagram. I'm pretty active, so you'll see the latest things on there. I try to keep things up to date. I also have a newsletter that I send out once a month. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this time, Chloe.
Thank
it was
you.
Great talking to you. And honestly, it's like, there's no coincidences in life. You've shared some things with me that are going to help. I can use as tools to be a better father to my daughters today.
Awesome.
So thank you. I feel blessed with this opportunity. And I send love and blessings to you and your family, and especially with this traffic you got to face right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.